Hello and welcome back to our Flutter course. In this session, we are going to dive deep into one of the most interesting and widely used architectural patterns in modern app development. It's model, view, ViewModel, popularly known as MVVM. This pattern is not just a buzzword, it's a powerful approach to structuring your app that can lead to more maintainable, scalable, and testable code. So let's unpack MVVM and see how it can revolutionize the way you build your Flutter apps. So, first things first, what exactly is MVVM? At its core, MVVM is a structural design pattern that separates the development of graphical user interface from the business logic or the backend logic of the application. This separation is achieved through three core components: the model, the view, and the view model. Now let's break these down. And one more thing, this entire section is entirely about the theories and so on. So if you would like to go directly into the apps on implementing MVVM, you can just go to the next lecture. And also I've covered a bit more about MVVM in the budget app section. So if you find that one lecture in the budget app section being repetitive, you can just skip that lecture. All right, it's completely right. It's almost the same thing, so no issues. Okay, so the first thing is model. So this represents the data and the business logic of your application. It's where your data resides. Think of databases like data networks or like business logic components. This model is this model is basically the heart of your application and handling the what of your application. So basically, whenever the API is going to get a response, okay, it's gonna be stored in your model. I mean, it's gonna be structured in your model, right? So it's gonna be structured using the models, using the classes, and also the conversion of the JSON into model. It's also gonna be done in the model file itself. Now, you might not get the entire idea on like what exactly I'm talking about, but as soon as you like make it to the networking section, you're going to be able to understand that entire part. Now, the next one is view. So the view is all about the how, which means how to present the data. In Flutter, this equates to your UI elements. The view is responsible for presenting data to the user in a very specific format, that is exactly how your designer has told you to design. So it's as simple as that. And also it's basically the visual representation of the models. And now here comes the view model. So the view model acts as the mediator between the model and the view. It retrieves the data from the model and processes it, formatting, validating, etc., to make it suitable for presentation. In a sense, the view model handles most, if not all, of the presentation logic. Right. So, we might not need to actually call the APIs from the view model. We are going to have another file which is going to be called api.dart, where we are going to like keep all the APIs. And I mean, sometimes I've seen like people do call APIs in from inside the view model, and sometimes I've seen people just like calling it from outside in a separate file. So it's completely up to you, or like it's completely what you suit best for your application. And and even it's the same case for like the Firebase thing. So with like Cloud Firestore, some people like have a separate file for that, and they just like use a function to call that class for Firebase data handling inside the view model. And some people just like do the calling inside the view model itself. So it's completely like up to the people who are actually developing their applications. All right. Now, let's talk about the next part, which is the history and evolution of MVVM. MVVM isn't something new. It has its origin in Microsoft WPF and Silverlight technologies, where it was introduced to simplify event-driven programming of user interface. Over time, it has evolved and found its place in various programming frameworks, including Flutter. The reason for its widespread adoption is its ability to provide clear separation of concerns, which in turn simplifies management and development of complex application. And also, one more thing, it's very scalable. Like for example, you could use this let's say if you have some sort of a startup and you're just starting out for creating the MVP. MVP means like minimal viable product. You can use the MVVM, and as soon as you like startup grows, as soon as the app grows, the size of the app grows, you can still use the MVVM because it's really scalable. All right. Now let's dive a bit deeper into each components of the MVVM. Like we have covered the basics. Now let's get into the advanced part of each and every section. So the model in MVVM is fundamentally the same as in the architectural patterns of MVC. It represents the real world business rules and data that your application deals with. The key thing to remember is that the model is independent of the UI. It does not know what the model of it does not know that the model that I'm sorry. It does not know that the view or ViewModel exists. It's just there doing its job, handling the logic and the data. Now the next one is view. The view in context of Flutter refers to your widgets, but there is a twist in how MVVM treats the view. Unlike other patterns where the view might handle some logic, in MVVM the view is as dumb as possible. Its only concern is how things would look on the screen. All the logic is offloaded to the view model. And the third point is view model. This is where the MVVM really shines. The view model acts as a link between the model and the view. It handles all the presentation logic. For example, it might take a timestamp from the model and then convert it to a user-friendly date format. Also, it can like get a JSON data from the server and then convert it to a more readable object format. Simple as that. Now, the second example was a bit complex, but yeah, just like finish this part, finish the budget app and go to networking and you're going to see it all. So yeah, so it listens to the model, processes the data, and then exposes its processed data to the view. The view model is also where you handle the user action. For example, like button clicks, and then translate them into actions on the model. Now, the next part is like, let's talk about the MVVM flow, like the flow. All right. In a typical MVVM flow, the view binds two properties on the view model. When the user interacts with the view, it notifies the view model, which in turn may update the model. If the model changes, it notifies the view model, which updates the data present to the user. This flow creates a cycle that keeps the UI and business logic separate but interconnected. Now you might be thinking like, why MVVM? So yeah, you might be wondering like, why should I use MVVM? What's in it for me? The answer lies in the benefits MVVM brings. Separation of concern. By dividing the app into model, view, ViewModel, you separate the different aspects of your application. This separation makes your app easier to manage, test and maintain. Improved testability, that's the second point. With MVVM, your business logic lives in the view model, which can be easily tested uh, independently of the UI. Now, flexibility and scalability. Changes to the UI can be made with minimal impact on the business logic and vice versa. This makes your app more flexible and scalable. Now, let's talk about some real life scenarios, right? So, let's think of an like enterprise application. In large scale apps where the business logic can get quite complex, having a separate view model to handle this exact complexity can keep your code more organized and manageable. Now, apps with complex UI. For example, with dynamic and complex UIs, MVVM can help manage the presentation logic effectively, keeping your UI code clean and concise. Now it's good for like collaborative projects also. In team projects, MVVM allows developers to like work on view model, while designers focus on the view, leading to a more efficient development process. Now, as we wrap up this session, I just wanted you to remember that understanding and implementing MVVM takes time and practice. It's a powerful toolkit, especially when working with Flutter. Embrace the pattern, experiment with it, and see how it can be improved. Okay, so yeah, just one more thing. I had to like show you the advantages of MVVM. So it has enhanced separation of concerns. MVVM shines where yeah. So like the so right now, let me just tell you the advantages and disadvantages. So yeah, I guess it's the same thing which we have like covered just now, but maybe I'm just gonna like tell it to you again in a better way. So MVVM shines when it comes to separating responsibilities within your app. By dividing the app into model, view, vModel, each component handles its own set of tasks. This separation leads to cleaner, more organized code, making it easier for you to maintain and update your apps. And it improves the testability. Now, testing is a crucial part of your app development. MVVM architecture makes your life easier since the view model handles most of the logic and is decoupled from the UI components, and you can test it without worrying about the UI layers. This leads to more robust and reliable tests. And the third point is like code is more maintainable. As your app grows, maintaining it can become a challenge. MVVM helps to mitigate this. Changes in the business logic or the UI can be made independently, reducing the risk of unintended side effects. This modularity is a lifesaver for large-scale complex applications. So yeah, I just want to like say to you that the most popular architecture for startups is MVVM, and yeah, and if you see through the job descriptions of like many different applications, okay, people mostly use either MVVM or the block architecture, and I guess I have made this very clear that I love the MVVM architecture, especially in startups. So and the next point is in a team environment, MVVM allows for more effective collaboration. Designers can focus on the view, while developers can concentrate on the view model and model. This clear separation can lead to more streamlined development process. Now, easier state management. So, state management is simpler and more intuitive with MVVM. The view model acts as the single source of truth for your app's state, making it easier to manage and debug state related issues. Now, the next part is like challenges with MVVM, right? So it has a steep learning curve, but I mean, if you compare it with like other architectures, it's kind of like really easy. So one of the first hurdles you might encounter with MVVM is its learning curve. It requires a good understanding of not the architecture itself, but also how it interacts with the Flutter framework. For beginners, it can be slightly a bit daunting, but easier than all the other architectures. Now, for smaller projects, MVVM might be an overkill. Like, for example, let's say if we talk about a simple counter app, we don't need MVVM for that. The architecture shines in larger applications and in MVPs as well. Now, let's talk about like, yeah, now the second part is like the overhead in the view model creation. As I've said before, like each screen of your app will typically require a view model. It will typically require a view model, but not necessarily. I've explained to you the example of the user part earlier in this video. Now, this can lead to significant amount of boilerplate code, especially in large applications with numerous screens. Now, performance considerations. While not a major issue, performance can sometimes be a concern with MVVM, particularly in how the view and view model reacts. Binding large amounts of data or complex logic in the view model can lead to some performance bottlenecks, but that can be fixed, but it needs some effort. And finally, yeah, the state management nuisance. Like sometimes we face problem with this state management. Now, while MVVM aids in state management, it also includes its own complexities. You're gonna see in the budget app that we might have a screen which is like rebuilding in a loop. So I have added the fix for that, but that thing can happen. But we can also like add some simple fixes to it. So you need to like carefully manage how the view model communicates with the view to ensure that the UI is updated efficiently and correctly without falling into the loop. So as we have seen, the MVVM offers a range of benefits, particularly in terms of maintainability, testability, and separation of concerns. However, it's not without its own challenges, especially in terms of learning curve and potential complexity. As a Flutter developer, it's important to weigh these advantages and challenges against the need of your project. Now, in the next session, we're going to start looking into how to implement MVVM in Flutter. So stay tuned and happy